Sorry for the delayed start, everyone. Good evening. You will probably hear a microphone change here momentarily, hopefully. There we go. We are all connected. Little technical difficulties when you realize that you haven't turned on your microphone yet you already launched a live cast. Everyone, welcome to the Chiefs Digest live stream. I am Matt Derrick, as the screen says. And yes, since I scheduled everything at least before the show started, we do get the hooray. It is Q&A day from Luttrell. Thank you very much. I truly appreciate you being able to start the show off the right way tonight. Yeah, Bobby, are we in the final countdown? I hope so. Love a good Europe countdown to training camp. Only 20. I need the end of the month. I get a little fuzzy on the math. I mean, July 24th is the day the rookies and the quarterbacks are reporting. So 24 days, I think, is officially today until the unofficial start of training camp, if you will. 29 days until the official start of training camp for fans and the public practices. So we're less than a month away. We're getting there. But as I said, this is the silly season of the NFL. Anything weird that can happen is what's going to happen this week and right now. Continuing to see weird things about weddings, or one particular wedding that may be happening this week. Chris, unfortunately, I have not been invited to the wedding, so I will not be replying with any reporting from the wedding. Hopefully, there will be somebody embedded that will let us know what is going on. But this will be the wedding of the summer, right? Although it's been very, very hush, top secret. I did enjoy The Onion. I think had a headline that Travis Kelce uttered 3 lines about the wedding's location before the tranquilizer dart hit him in the neck. So I enjoyed that one. That was pretty good. Onion has always been pretty good on the Taylor Travis coverage. But like I said, it is the silly season. Nobody has anything to do, including NFL reporters and NFL adjacent writers and content producers. So I will admit that as I try to stay up to date and make sure that nothing flies by me, that I keep up to date on everything, and that no news kind of, or just even smoke passes by me. I have unfortunately then read some of the most nonsensical things of the week. Just people throwing stuff at the wall, seeing if it will stick. I mean, there's nothing going on. Everybody's on vacation. So the only thing that we can do for the most part is speculate or look forward. And I choose to look forward, everyone. So fire away with your questions. Not a whole lot going on. The Chiefs are taking the silly season this week to at least get out some news dumps, as they call it in the biz. So we got today the announcement that the Chiefs had a study done on the one-time impact of building the stadium and the training facility. As Mark Donovan, team president, said in the statement, it's really 4 projects, because you got the stadium, you got the training complex, and then you've got 2 development districts around each of those. That's what gets them to the $4.5 billion. I've seen a lot of people throwing numbers back and forth. The Chiefs are still saying it's a $3 billion stadium with a $300 million training complex. I've seen a $4.5 billion number thrown around today for the stadium. That's not the stadium. That's the cost of the entire, both of the complexes, the training facility and the development around it, the stadium and the development around it. So talking about an estimate of $1.2 billion in facilities around both those. Numbers are a little bit shaky there in some places about, I mean, it's dividing up about which one's going to be getting more development. But that's the numbers that they're using. And I think this is obviously just a little bit of a pushback against some of the talk in Topeka and some of the anti-stadium and anti-public money talk going into that there's not going to be that much residual impact in the local community. And then as far as it goes, tax revenues goes, as I always say on stories like this, the reality is somewhere in the middle. It's not going to be as rosy and good as the Chiefs and the pro stadium politicians are going to tell you. It's not going to be as bad as the anti-stadium, anti-tax money going to stadiums folks will tell you as well. The truth is somewhere in the middle, and it's pretty hard to digest it at the end of the day anyway. So really just comes down to whether or not you want the Chiefs in Kansas or not, and they're going, so it's happening. Just at this point, the train has left the building, so move on. Like I said, don't. The only other announcement the Chiefs did have on Tuesday, they hired a new. They're not. I don't think they're really calling it technically a clinician. That's what the Chiefs had before with Doctor Sean Tyrans. He has moved on, and the Chiefs hired today Tyler Bradstreet vice president of performance psychology. A little bit different title than Sean Tyrans had rather. Don't know why I keep calling him Tyrants Vance. That's a totally different person. He had been at Texas Tech as a director of sports psychology and later associate athletic director of psychological health and performance. I get some titles on these guys. He also was with the Milwaukee Brewers in a mental health and performance role. That sounds like what he will be doing in Kansas City with a emphasis on mental health and performance. He'll be reporting to Rick Burkholder. This is still an evolving role in the NFL, so we'll see if he's doing exactly the same thing that Dr. Tyrants did. We'll see if Dr. Bradstreet's doing the same thing. But important, I think, that the Chiefs, they still have a focus on this role. I can tell you from talking to some players over the years, they appreciated having Dr. Tyrants in the building and having that resource available to them. There's always some concerns about, discussing personal issues and psychological issues with a team employee. So, I think you're always going to see, some guys having their own doctors that they go to. There's still a stigma in the NFL about mental health. There's some guys who don't want to talk to a team clinician. They don't want to talk to their own clinician. It's a macho world and alpha world, and there's some guys who are going to be concerned about that. And I think there's an important in trying to break down those barriers still. But anything the NFL and teams can do to help the players to get them the resources they need, whether it's a team resource or their own resources, I think that's the direction that you want to get to. So no faults here. And whatever the Chiefs are trying to do, if they've learned something from the past and want to go in a different direction, if they're listening to players and what they want, I would say, I always felt like from talking to the players, there's a lot more confidence that the team has in their own psychological services and mental health services than maybe the players always feel, just simply because players are safeguarding their own health and their own, and maybe sometimes in their mind, reputations. So I hope this is a move in the right direction. I have no reason to believe that it's not. I hope the more players are able to take advantage of this or find help and resources that they need to get whatever mental health services that they can help them. If this is a move towards more, sports psychology and more on the field performance, that's probably good for both players and the team. To have a bit of a barrier, if you will, between the sports psychology of it and the mental health part of it, and let players, go to their own health providers for those things. I'll be interested to see how we'll get to talk to Andy Reid, obviously, at training camp. And it's one of the things I'm going to ask him is how he feels that this is going to work. Maybe talk to Brett Veach as well. Would love to talk to Rick Burkholder, but Rick is not someone that the Chiefs normally make available. But we'll see. We'll see what happens here. Appreciate all the enthusiasm tonight and people popping in. I'm going to get right to your questions. Neo, do you think Omar Norman Lott will be back by midseason? And what is the sense of the building? Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Neo. There was some hope in the building that he might be able to do some things by the end of the mini camp, which didn't happen. So now, there's the finger crossing would be that he's able to pass his physical and maybe do a few things at the beginning of training camp. I'm not sure. That's not 100%. It's still up in the air. So it could have very well have been that just even having him available by the end of OTAs was a little bit of a rosy, optimistic expectations. But that would be the ideal scenario: is that he passes his physical, passes the conditioning test. They feel comfortable about letting him get out there, and then use training camp as a ramp up. I would still expect it would be a while before he'd be a full go. I think there's still a possibility that you get Omar Norman Lott back before then. I mean, his injury, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was in early October. So, hey, 12 months. If you got him back by October 1st, I think that would be a great. Obviously, players are coming back, from ACLs faster and faster. Mahomes is coming back, and it looks like he's going to beat that timeline. Different positions, so always consider that. But and different injuries, every knee is different, as they all say. So we'll wait and see. But I would not be surprised if we saw Omar Norman Lott at some point during training camp. If it's earlier, then great. I mean, your possibility that he's ready by week one is real. I still would think that we're going to see him at some point during training camp. So I think it'll be before midseason. I mean, October 1st would be like the latest date that I think I would expect Omar Norman Lott back. From just hearing what the Chiefs' expectations are and how confident they've been and what the recovery has been. But I still wouldn't rule out the beginning of the season. That it's just going to depend on how quickly I think he can ramp things up once he is cleared for physical activities. Hey, Bobby would love to catch up with people at training camp and everything. So, hey, I always tell people, feel free. I do ask people not to try to come back to the media tent if you see me or anything like that during practice, because I'm usually trying to keep an eye on what's going on, and especially if it's a team period or even 7-on-7, I'm trying to track things that are going on. I definitely don't mind if you come up to the media tent, like before practice. After, I'm not there, so you don't want to go there afterwards, but come up during practice. Absolutely. Lunch is sometimes difficult because I got to work afterwards, and we're down and getting things done and everything like that for usually about 45 minutes after practice. So it's a tough day for me, but hey, it's like I said, if you got time to come over before practice starts, or sneak on over when they're doing some position drills and all those kind of things, feel free. Always love meeting people at training camp. It's a lot of fun. Chris, over under on arrests this weekend. I mean, talking league wide or Chiefs. I mean, if you're Chiefs, you're hoping there's none. So you'd have to put that pretty low. I mean, 0.5 would be my over under on Chiefs arrest this weekend. So, I mean, one would get you there. But you gotta, just now you gotta knock on wood there, Chris, and because you don't want any arrest. That's the one thing you can't have. So let's just, and I know, yes, hey, bless Luttrell. Hope everyone keeps their digits this weekend. Yes, that's another. I had a doctor's appointment this weekend with and it's with the part of the hospital that treats wounds, and I'm like, man, I'm assuming next week at your clinic is a rough one, and they were like, yeah, that's the busiest week of the year after the 4th of July when things get a little out of hand. So everybody take care of yourself this week. We don't need anybody getting any burns. We don't need any holes. We don't need, don't do anything crazy out there. Practice safety, everybody. Chiefs, Warriors, Giants, Penguins. That's a new name. So if you are a new to the show or just new asking a question, kudos to you. I appreciate that. Oh, didn't mean to double click it there. How do you think the safety rotation will play out? Will Connor be a starting safety? Seems to lost a cornerback role. And I mean, what the Chiefs had done with Connor over the last few years, I mean, he considered himself a defensive back. That's how he would describe himself. And they'd use him in a pretty versatile role. And it gets weird because when you're talking about a slot corner, I mean, and a nickel back, teams for decades have been using different players in those roles. Sometimes it's I mean, most of the time it's a corner and it's a cornerback, but sometimes it's a safety. I mean, we've seen it, here. Tyrann Mathieu played a lot of slot corner, a lot of nickel. And sometimes those words get used interchangeably, and they're not always interchangeable. I mean, slot corner is a very, very specific role. A nickelback can be a little bit more, nebulous as far as what it is and everything. So I think we sometimes get a lot out of control with the way we use those words. But Tramari Connor is going to be a starting safety. He's going to be your strong safety, barring injury or a significant upset of any sort. All indications are that the Chiefs are going to use him in a strong safety role this year. Everything that I saw during offseason workouts would tell me that he's going to be that. Then when you look at, what they did roster wise, and, they drafted a slot corner, they signed a slot corner as a free agent. They've spent more time developing Chris Roland Wallace as a slot corner, and he's a cornerback by trade that, I mean, really has moved to safety. I think he's still listed as maybe a corner or defensive back on the team's roster, but when they break out into groups and they're doing, position practice and they're working out under position groups, he's a safety. I mean, he's always working out with the safeties. He's not working with the corners. So he's truly a safety at this point in his career. So, yeah, I mean, Tramari Connor is going to be a safety. There's no doubt about that. I don't think that there's any fear that Alohi Gilman is not going to be your free safety. There were some things during OTAs where they did some rotations and moved some guys around and everything. And there's no doubt. I mean, I think that Dave Merritt and Steve Spagnuolo are going to use a lot of rotations during camp and preseason games and during the beginning of the season to figure out what their best rotation is. But it certainly, to me, on paper and even, watching practices during the off season, it certainly right now looks like your best, most reliable secondary is going to be Tramari Connor at strong safety, Gilman at free safety. Jaden Hicks is going to be your first guy off the bench. Chris Wallace is going to be in that rotation, but he's going to be, one of the slot corner options. I'm somewhat convinced that I think of Cater Kohu and Jaden Canaday, that only one of those guys I think is going to make the roster to 53, barring some injuries. Canaday has been getting a lot of looks, and I don't know if that's just to find out what he is and this for the team to find out what he's got, or if it's, that they know about Cater Kohu and what he can do when he's healthy. We'll see. But that's the way at least I see that safety spot breaking down right now. And hey, there could be some other names that battle for spots, but I think the Chiefs are pretty comfortable with 4 of those positions. Then we'll see what happens with the 5th. And, I think a little bit of, L'Jarius Sneed may calculate a little bit into that position. It would not surprise me if the Chiefs consider moving L'Jarius to more of a safety role and not playing him as much at corner. That's happened to a lot of guys late in their career. And, especially when they've had some injuries and knee injury histories like L'Jarius, where, he may not have the mobility and dexterity and the quickness and acceleration that he once had that makes him a really good corner, but he's still got the coverage skills, the anticipation, all of those traits that would make him a good safety. And obviously he's strong, he's a hard hitter, all of those things. So I think there's a lot of things there that would make L'Jarius at this point in his career a really good safety. And I'm looking through and seeing if there's anybody else on the roster that kind of stands out to me. I mean, there's some undrafted free agents that might, I know there's a lot of hype, at least a little bit of hype around the Iowa kid, Xavier Wampa, Wonka. I think it's Wampa. I need to figure out how to pronounce that guy's name for real. Deshaun Singleton, I thought had some moments. Those are, undrafted free agents are always long shots, but I think your top 4 safeties are pretty well set. And we'll see what happens and goes on from there. Bobby with the super chat. So many fans are worried about the offense. Do you think people are vastly underestimating the impact of the new running back room will have on the offense? I think fans are worried Andy won't run. I'm not, though. I'm with you, Bobby. I'm not worried that Andy Reid's not going to run the football. He's going to. Traditionally he's a 60-40 guy, sometimes more 65 pass, 35 run. But I think it's going to be more traditional 60-40 type breakdown. If you told me it was 58-42 breakdown at the end of the season, I wouldn't be stunned. Um, and really the only thing that I think that would also factor into it. Remember, Andy Reid also considers the short passing game elements, a lot of them, part an extension of the run game. So he considers screen passes, an extension of the run game. So, hey, I've been thinking about it because I'm right now I'm kind of going through my projections about where I think that different guys may end up, and I'm trying to get a handle on where I think Kenneth Walker could end up number wise, because I think it's possible that he does end up in maybe the 1,200 yard category as a rusher, but then it's going to be okay. Well, what's he going to get as a pass catcher? Because I think he's in that 400, 600 yard range, and that's going to be on screens, flats. They're gonna test him in a lot of other places too. I mean, they're going to run wheels and angles, and they're gonna do a lot of things with Kenneth Walker rather than just run him up in the backfield and let him run the football. And I think he's going to run the football effectively because this is a good blocking offensive line, and he can make guys miss. So he's going to bring off some big runs that they just could not do last year. I think there's going to be a significant commitment to the run, and I like what they have after Kenneth Walker, Bobby. I like Amari DiMercado. Again, not a guy that you're going to use in a huge role, but as a rotational piece, he's got some explosion and he's made some big plays in the past. Just hold on to the football and make sure you're in the end zone. That's helpful. But I'm really impressed with Emmett Johnson. I know the Chiefs have been pretty impressed with EJ Smith as well. I think everybody they've added to that room, I think, has got some real potential, and I'm still a Brashard Smith fan. Whether he ends up as a full-time running back or part-time running back, I think there's a spot for him, depending on how the specialist roles all play out. So I think the Chiefs do have some options there. I think I mean, I am banking all of my expectations of the improvement of the Chiefs offense on that running back room. Because let's face it, if the running back room performs as well as it did last year, and I use as well as in quotation marks, it's going to be a rough year because there's no reason to expect anything different. Your quarterback is going to be dinged up and not 100%. You have virtually the same wide receiver group, and your Hall of Fame tight end's a year older. Nothing else got better. Your running back room is the one thing that should be improved, and I think it's significantly improved. So that running back room is going to be the key to the whole thing, Bobby. I'm with you there, and I that's why I think that this offense is going to be better this year. I think that Kenneth Walker's got that ability. He's got something different than both Pacheco and Kareem Hunt had the last couple of years. So I'm bullish on this offense. Now, I mean, they're good. I think they're going to run the football. There's no doubt about it. The question is just going to be how effectively they run the football. If they run as effectively as I believe that they can, this team's going to have a good year because defenses are going to have to do one of two things. They're either going to have to change what they have done or are doing against this team scheme wise, or they're just going to have to get beat. I mean, that's going to be their two options because how defenses have played the Chiefs in the last year, 2 years isn't going to work anymore. What teams have done to the Chiefs since that Vic Fangio Super Bowl performance, you can't do it anymore. So I think that things are going to change up. So appreciate the super chat, Bobby. Thank you very much. And as always, you move to the top of the line with the super chat. So going to Brian next on the super chat. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. I have rewatched Pat's last play of the season too many times. It was clearly a late hit. Please tell me the refs are going to watch that closer. I haven't looked back at it as much. I mean, I do recall thinking at the time that it was a little bit late. Now, hey, sometimes they've given Mahomes a here's the thing. I think Patrick gets a lot more freedom and he gets the benefit of the doubt in the pocket than he does when he runs. Earlier in his career, he got a little bit more, benefit of the doubt when he ran the football. But the last few years, especially because teams tell the officials, I mean, they're lobbying about officials. And one of the officiating points on Mahomes is about his tendency to fake going out of bounds, fake sliding, doing some of those things, and giving a little bit of the benefit of the doubt to the defense on those plays. And I think there probably was some factor of that on the hit that knocked him out last year. When he scrambles, when he gets outside the pocket, and particularly when he's across the line of scrimmage, there's a little bit more, I think, leeway given to the defense. And I don't know if that's a whole lot's going to change. I mean, especially when he's near a sideline and, is he uses that boundary as kind of a deception on the defense to make them think, I am going out of bounds, but then he cuts back. I mean, if he sees that defender twitch a little bit, it's a perfectly legal play. The NFL has not outlawed that. The NFL has not said that you can't fake going out of bounds. They don't let quarterbacks fake sliding. That's something that they don't want to see happen. And I'm surprised that they haven't addressed it in the rule book to say that you can't, fake as a quarterback. You can't fake going out of bounds as a way to, and because honestly, it's the same thing that applies to every player. Any player can do it. It doesn't have to be just a quarterback, because anybody can't get hit late at going out of bounds. And I know that play that Mahomes got hit on is a little bit different, but again, there's I don't know if the NFL and the officials are going to give him much of a break on that. I think, if anything, I think he will continue to get more of the benefit of the doubt in the pocket. There will be a little bit of protecting Mahomes, and you don't think you're going to be able to get away with as many late hits or anything like that, anything around the upper body on Mahomes in the pocket. And he's been fairly well protected there. I don't know if they're going to go the other way, because I think that, again, they don't want quarterbacks and they don't want Mahomes to, be using fakes and deeks of using the sideline in order to give himself a little bit of a escape room. And, because we've seen him. I mean, he's a really smart player at doing that. And like I said, anybody can do it. So it's not limited to just a quarterback. But I can't tell you that they're going to watch anything closer, because I think there's an element of the NFL that doesn't want to give quarterbacks too much leeway there, and they're going to give it an edge a little bit more to the defenders in situations like that. So appreciate the super chat, Brian. I think that's a great question, and we'll see what happens. I might be surprised on that. Chiefs Warriors, how will your commute to work change, Matt, with the new stadium? Will the traffic be better for you? I have been privately joking that I have, 5 years to retire or find a new job, because this moving is going to be horrendous for me in so many ways. I mean, we'll set aside the whole tax thing and how that's going to work out, and working in 2 states. Let's not even worry. I don't worry about that. It complicates things on April 15th, but nobody wants to hear about my problems there and everything. But I've got 22 minutes from my house to the parking lot, and either for game days or for practice days. I mean, it's pretty consistent. Occasionally 4:35 might get backed up, and depending on what day or time I'm leaving, usually, hey, I go early enough on game day that I don't run into too much traffic. I usually head to the stadium about 4 hours before the game, so I usually can end up with pretty decent travel time and pretty good parking spaces too. So got no problems there. But it's the new commute that's going to drive me crazy, because I haven't worked it out yet. I don't think I looked it up. I would imagine the practice facility, which is going to be most of my work days, going to be about 35, 40 minutes. It might be, I think when I looked it up, it was only slightly less of a commute than training camp in St. Joe. Training camp's a little bit longer, more mileage. Traffic might delay things, and we'll see. Hey, once they build it up and everything, and it might slow things down even further than just going out into some green space right now. But yeah, it's going to be a close to 35, 40-minute commute for me. So I live near Liberty, so I'm literally on the opposite way of town from where the new training facility is going to be. So I am not a fan of that. Not looking forward to it at all. And then, I mean, Bobby, traffic should be better for everyone. Definitely further for me. Yeah, not excited about that. But again, I mean, I go early enough that I should be okay, but still, what? It's about 30 minutes for me probably right now to where the stadium will be. So maybe 30, 35, depending on factors. But um, I'm still not looking forward to it. Nope, nope, nope. I like what I have right now, so I'm going to miss that. Chris, will the Chiefs hire a zoologist like the Sixers? The Sixers really hire a zoologist? Or are you just messing with me here, Chris? What is your best 4th of July story? Best or worst? Because I mean, probably I was never much of a costume kid, but I guess it was probably like 1982. I got this great idea that I would go as a Rubik's Cube, and nobody really thought. I mean, when I told people this, nobody really seemed to get it and thought I was crazy and it wasn't gonna work out. But I found a great box and that just fit me perfectly, and for the armhole and the legs and head and everything like that. It just fit my body perfectly, and then painted it up and everything. And I ended up winning the Boy Scout troop best costume. And so I got to take home, it was a traveling trophy for whatever the contest was that month and everything. And so I got the trophy, which I don't remember what it was. It was like a Boy Scout made out of 10. Maybe some other troops had this too and everything. I don't know. But I got to take that home for a month. So it's like the only costume contest I ever won. So that's my best story. My best worst 4th of July story. And my uncle doesn't listen, so I don't think this story is actionable in any way. And it's true. So I would have been like probably 6 or 7 years old, maybe a little bit older than that, but I think it was like 6 or 7. My uncle, I won't name him, but my uncles and I were really close. My aunts and uncles and I were really close in age. So he was only 6 years older than I was. So he was probably like 12 or 13. Um, on July 5th, he took all the leftover fireworks parts from the night before, like just the bits of bottle rockets or snakes and Roman candles, anything else that was exploded or partially exploded or unexploded, whatever it may have been, and put it into a pile on the sidewalk. And then we weren't allowed to have matches or anything like that. So he lit it with a magnifying glass, which meant that he was obviously really, really close to it when the pile of fireworks exploded, and gave him 3rd-degree burns on his arms. And his mother, my grandmother, was, I believe at the time, I think she was talking to her sister, and there were a couple of times that you did not bother my grandmother during the day. One was when she was talking to her sister on the phone. Another was when she was watching One Life to Live, and the other was when she was taking a nap. So those 3 times you didn't bother her. So when he tried to get her attention, say, hey, kind of blew off my arms here and everything, and she was just like, yeah, we'll deal with that later. So then he did what we did anytime that we had a boo-boo of any sort. My grandmother would break out the rubbing alcohol. And so he did that and put it on his arms. I don't know how that felt. I can only say as a witness that looking at it, that it looked like it hurt a lot. But eventually he got proper care and everything, and everything ended up fine. And really surprisingly, doesn't have that much of a scars or anything like that. So it was obviously took some pretty good care of him, but not a great story. And it's at that point that I will go with Brian's message of make sure you hit that like button, because if you like that story about my uncle almost blowing his arms off, go ahead and hit that like button, because you will get more of that. I'm not sure you want more of that, but you're going to get more. Nikki, when will KC draft a high tight end? Who's number 3 this year? Boy, your guess is as good as mine, Nikki. And if I'm not mistaken, I mean, I don't think I'm crazy here. I believe the Chiefs have only taken a tight end 3 times since they drafted Travis Kelce. And Travis was, first pick of the 3rd round. So since then, they took James O'Shaughnessy, which I think he was a fifth rounder. I always forget if he was the fifth rounder and Noah Gray was the fourth, or the other way around. I think he was the fifth. Noah Gray, I think was the fifth. He could have been the fourth, but I think he was the fifth. And then Jared Wiley. So also, like, he was the fifth, right? I know they all those guys were fourth and fifth rounders, and I don't have it up in front of me, so I'm not looking at what round they were taken right now. Those are the only three. And you're right. I mean, when you're only one when you draft a tight end every 4 years, and the highest that you draft him is in the fourth or fifth round, you're not giving Tom Melvin the best to work with and everything. And they've cobbled together a lot from some undrafted free agents over the years. But hey, who's going to be number 3 this year? I'm concerned. I've put out the red alert, and maybe I'm going to be crying wolf here. Maybe this tight end group's going to be better than I think, and somebody's going to step forward. But I feel like from OTAs that Noah Gray looks a lot like he did last year. That he's not that old. He's only 27, but he struggled last year, and granted, I'm gonna hold off on making too much of a pronouncement, because when it came to team periods during OTAs, remember, they did not have Patrick Mahomes, so he was working with Justin Fields and primarily. I don't even know if he was out there a lot with Garrett Nussmeier, so it was probably primarily Justin Fields. But I mean, everybody struggled, and it could very well just be on Fields. Maybe when Mahomes gets back out there, Noah Gray is going to be a catching machine, and everything's going to be back to fine. But I mean, Noah Gray is Noah Gray. He's not going to go out and get you 800 yards or anything. So he's a number 2 tight end at best. Honestly, at this point, you would almost say that the Chiefs should have a better tight end than Noah Gray as a pass catcher. Not sure that they do. Breeding stool, he was dinged up again a little bit. I think he only missed one practice that we saw. And John Michael Gillenborg was pretty much on the shelf all of the practices that we saw. Chiefs did not reveal injuries on these players, but Gillenborg was on watching practice with a compression sleeve on. So my informed speculation from seeing this a lot over the years is that you're probably just talking about a soft tissue injury that they were being very cautious with. Same thing probably with Breeding Stool on the day that he missed. But Jared Wiley was healthy the entire time out there, and I never felt like Wiley really took control of anything. And again, was that because they were working with a new quarterback in Justin Fields and a new quarterback in Garrett Nussmeier, and both of them were struggling with control issues? Could be, but I mean, I'll say this. I thought that outside of Travis Kelce, I thought the second best tight end during OTAs was Trey Watson. And Watson had some up and down moments too. They had two, and the fact that I'm pretty sure that the Chiefs feel the same way about the tight end position. They had 2 tryout guys in for the mandatory minicamp, and both of them were tight ends. Kenny Yeboah ended up signing the next day in Arizona. I'm not sure I think the Chiefs might have signed him if they had just acted a little faster, but Arizona made sure to jump on him immediately once the Chiefs had him in for the tryout. So that might have just been some motivation there. And the Chiefs did end up signing Mason Pline, who was another one of their tryout players. But second-year guy from Furman. He had some good catches, showed some good hands. Was impressed with that. 6'7", 260. That's a good target size. Sorry, didn't mean to sneeze in everyone. I need to find a mute button there so I don't sneeze in everybody's ears. Apologies for that. But, Pline, he could end up being like a blocking tight end. Not prolific numbers, former basketball player. So the Chiefs have been down that road before with some success. We'll see. But, based on traits, Nikki, I would say Jared Wiley would be your number 3. But he's had the most, and now granted, it's not a tremendous number. I think he has played about 300 snaps offensively in the first 2 years of his career. Not a ton of work. I mean, it's kind of basically, maybe like a medical red shirt type season that he's gotten out of his first 2 years. If he can, show and develop what some of the flashes that he's shown in the past, he can be that number three guy. I just don't know if any one of these players is going to step up and be a legitimate number three option. Or, are you going to end up going with somebody like a Pline that maybe has some upside as a pass catcher, but you feel like is big enough to maybe develop into a suitable blocker? I mean, we'll see, but I've got some serious concerns about that position. And like I said, if I make, and I'm working on this right now, so my first 53, I'll have Jared Wiley as the third option. I'm just not. That's not a 90% for me. And honestly, that's the tight end is the one position group on this team that I could definitely look at and say, okay, there might be somebody that's not on the roster who makes this team at the tight end position. I'm not enthusiastic about that because not a huge ton of options out there as free agents, and once again, coming in late into an Andy Reid offense as a pass catcher, not an ideal scenario. So you are probably working with what you have, but what you have just hasn't proven anything yet. So we shall see. All right. Paddock, do you see Andy and EB using jumbo sets to help protect Mahomes and give a different look to opposing teams? I will be interested in particular, Paddock, to see if, Andy does a little bit of just, going with the trends around the league because, hey, there's a lot of zigging and zagging in the NFL. And usually Andy Reid's the trendsetter. And kind of in this regard, I mean, it was like 5-6 years ago, we were talking about the fact that the Chiefs were the team that used more multiple tight end sets than just about anybody. Not just, two tight end sets, but three tight end sets. We're talking about the T-Rex 4 tight end set formations that you'd see every once in a while. So Andy Reid using a bunch of tight ends is not out of the ordinary. And I thought that there were times last year when if I were Andy Reid, I think I would have gone 6-0 linemen at times with one of those guys as essentially a tight end and not just in run formation. Because when they did that, I mean, they had a few moments where they brought in the sixth offensive lineman and they threw the ball too. And they had some success with it. And this is a lot of things like the Rams are doing. The Rams are using a lot of, 13 personnel with 3 tight ends and, using and a couple of guys who were just blockers and not just for the run game, but for the pass protection too. And part of the problem that the Chiefs have is that they don't have their blocking, tight end blocking is just not great. I know the Chiefs tend to describe Noah Gray as a blocking tight end, but the reality is that Travis Kelce is a better blocking tight end than Noah Gray. And Travis gets no respect around the league for his blocking. And that's probably fair for the most part. I think he's a better blocker than most people do. I think Noah is probably a worse blocker than people give him credit for. The reputation about Jared Wiley was that he was a pass blocking tight end with better hands than you would expect. And the reality is that I think his hands were fine. It's just blocking was a little suspect. Nobody else, I mean, that they were bringing in, is really, a skilled blocker. I mean, Mason Pline, I'm talking about having the body to be a good blocker, but he's a converted basketball player. He's kind of late to the tight end game, so it's not like he's been blocking as a tight end for 5 years. It's a skill set that he'd have to pick up. So you don't have anybody that's particularly skilled in that area. There are some blocking tight ends that are available that if you wanted to go that route and have that guy as your third tight end who's primarily a blocker and not a pass catcher, there are some options out there. I wouldn't be opposed to that. I mean, that would probably be what I would be if I'm on there and Brett Veach's staff right now. I'd say let's look at some of those blocking guys, and whether or not Andy Reid's asking for it or how he's going to use it, we'll see. But I like I said, I thought there were times last year that they could have gone with just 6 offensive linemen, and that's what some teams do. Buffalo did it there for a while. They were using a lot of 6 offensive linemen in both pass and run sets. Some of it keeps teams off balance. You bring in a sixth tight end and they don't know whether you're going to, or sixth offensive lineman, and you don't know if that guy's a pass catcher or they're running a pass play or not. That's I think that's a big deal. So yeah, you need to keep some teams off balance that way, and you can do that. Um, yes, protecting Mahomes, especially probably on the right side, no matter who. I mean, that's going to be the weak spot of your offensive line. So, yeah, I think you'd like to have a little bit of extra protection there. And again, I might consider the offensive line option because that would at least be a more solid run blocking and pass protection option than just putting a tight end out there. So that's one way you could go as a jumbo set. That's might be what I would think of as maybe doing that too, Paddock. So if you think about it that way, I think that could be more of an option, just like attaching tight ends to the line. I think you could, I mean, the Chiefs have done it before in the past. It hasn't been something that they've done as much the last few years, but, and again, I don't know if they have the personnel to really make that work effectively, but it's worth consideration. So I think there's a lot of things that they should, hey, at least try and see if it works. And if not, put a pin in it and move on, but we will see. Brenda, who and how many wide receivers this year? Okay, so all right, four for sure. I mean, Rashee Rice. I mean, I can't imagine a trade of any sort, going on with Rashee Rice. I guess the only question, obviously, is going to be if Rashee gets into trouble, which you're hoping he does not. But Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, Tyquan Thornton, Cyrus Allen, absolute locks. I imagine Jalen Royals is close to a lock. Those first four guys, I would say, are like, like 95%. Some of them are 100%. I mean, like I said, Rice and Worthy aren't going anywhere. I would imagine Tyquan, I'd probably say is like 99. I'm just leaving the possibility of the 1 in 14 million in an option and everything from Benedict Cumberbatch, but after that, it's going to get a little dicey. Obviously, it's going to be who's going to be your returners. So you got five guys right there. I think the Chiefs will keep six. I don't think they're going to go down the road of keeping seven wide receivers again, because I think they can get a decent number of the guys that they like on the practice squad for emergency basis or just bringing somebody up on occasion when they need it. So I think it will be that sixth receiver is going to be one of your specialists and your returners. So right now, that guy would be Nico Remigio. That's the guy I'm going to pencil in as my sixth guy right now on my first initial 53. That's nowhere near 90%. That would be like maybe even 50% at best. I mean, it could be even a 40% option. The thing is that a lot of the options outside of Nico at the wide receiver spot, I mean, Andrew Armstrong is my sleeper. He's a guy that could really surprise you. I think he's been really impressive thus far. He's got good size, 6'4", 210, kid from Arkansas, good college career. I like him. I mean, I think he's got some options there. Jason Brownlee's been around, block a couple of times. He's a big receiver too, 6'3", 202. He's going to be in the equation. Jimmy Holiday has been impressive. All of these guys are in that kind of, that's their ceiling, is being the fifth or sixth guy is their ceiling. They could all do that. The knock against, I think, Armstrong and Holiday is that I don't necessarily view them as return specialists at this point. Not like Nico. And I know there's going to be some questions. Xavier Lloyd might be the one that we just don't know about as much as an undrafted free agent. Maybe he could be a returner and factor into that equation. We'll see. Amari Evans might be in that category. I know there's going to be some questions about Jeff Caldwell. Caldwell is probably a little too big and unwieldy. I mean, he's fast. I get that, but you want a guy that can make that move and shift and hit a high gear. 6'5", 215 is hard to do that. That's not the prototypical size for a kick returner. So, and I think Caldwell just needs a lot more seasoning. I think he's going to be a practice squad candidate this year. I don't think I have him on the outside right now behind all those guys as far as chances of making the 53. And I'm also going to have to bring in, Brashard Smith into the conversation here because I still don't know what he is. I don't know if he is a wide receiver, a running back, or can split time between both. If he makes the 53, are you counting him as mostly a running back, and therefore maybe another sixth receiver could still make the team? And if that's the case, I mean, I think it's Nico, Andrew Armstrong, Brownlee, Holiday are your top guys. I think Xavier Lloyd and Amari Evans are probably in that next group for me. DeJesus and Caldwell are then probably in that next group. And the only reason I really have DeJesus there is just, the 5'7", 170 is tough size wise. Both those guys are the extreme. When they're standing next to each other on the practice field, looks like different species. 5'7" and 6'5", it's absolutely hysterical. But both very different also. I mean, Jesus is clearly a good receiver. He's got good hands. He can run. Good route runner, does all those things. It's just that he's 5'7". He's going to have a size disadvantage in every matchup that he's going to face. So that's going to be tough. Caldwell's not he's going to be a size advantage in every situation that he has. He's just not as polished as a route runner and all those aspects as of yet. I mean, he makes plays because he's big and athletic, and there's a lot of plays he misses because he just doesn't have that skill set yet. So let's push him. Let's see what Chattershea can do with him. I still think he's a great practice squad candidate, but I just don't think he's quite there yet. So that's at least how I kind of see it right now, Brenda. Brother Rick, in your opinion, why did they let Tunyon walk? I really don't know, Rick. I mean, I'm still baffled by that one because I would have, as badly as things got last year, I would have played him so much more than the Chiefs did, thrown him the football and seen what happened. I mean, I'm still just absolutely baffled on what happened with Robert Tunyon last year. Because I have a number stuck in my head about how many snaps he played last year, and I just want to look it up and confirm before I make a fool out of myself because I'm so wrong. But I'll charge for me. I will tell you if I was right on how many snaps he played or how far I was off. Okay. I had in my mind that he played about 95 offensive snaps. He played 133. That's still like maybe 200 fewer snaps than I think he should have played. He was this team's second best tight end in training camp in the preseason. There was just no doubt about it. Behind Travis Kelce, he was the second best tight end. I have no idea why he didn't play more. I don't know if, he was 32. Maybe he just hit the wall after training camp and, they saw it in practice, but we didn't see it that way. And obviously had been at that point 3 years in 2022 when he had 470 yards with Green Bay. Maybe they thought they were getting in Robert Tunyon, they were getting a really great blocker, and then they just realized, no, he's a pass catcher at this point in his career, and maybe the blocking's not where it once was. I don't know. I do not understand it. I would have not only played him more last year, I would have brought him back again this year and kept him around. He's got a job in Pittsburgh, so obviously somebody in the NFL thinks he can play. So we'll see. I still do not get that one, and I've asked some people and that know, and they just don't want to tell me why he didn't play. So I wish I could tell you for sure, brother, but appreciate the super chat. I wish I could give you a better answer when you super chatted, but I'm with you. I just still think I'm baffled about what happened last year and why he's not back this year. And Brenda mainly wanted to know wide receivers after Rice, Xavier, and Thornton. Yeah, I think Cyrus Allen's absolutely going to make this team. And I think, if this offense is as good as I think it can be, I think he's going to be like a 400 to 600 yard potential receiver potentially. Maybe I may be too optimistic on him, but I think this offense is going to put up some numbers and he's going to just benefit from that. Jalen, like I said, I think Jalen would be the number 5 receiver right now. A lot of reasons to just, to go ahead and give him the job, even if he's even with some other guys, as a guy you drafted. So you'd like to protect that upside, potential and the investment that you've already made in him. Hey, waiving a guy and putting him on the practice squad when you drafted him, it does cost you. I mean, there's a little bit of a loss there. I mean, you lose some of the contract flexibility, you do lose some guaranteed money, so it's not a perfect solution. But I mean, if for a lot of GMs, and this would be my take on it as well, if I were Brett Veach, if I thought that Jalen Royals and Jimmy Holiday and Andrew Armstrong and Jason Brownlee were all even, if they were in if they were all in the same tier, Jalen Royals tie goes to Jalen Royals. So I think he would be five. And then, like I said, I mean, then the rest of it is going to be who's going to be your return specialist. I don't think anybody in your top five is your returner. You're not going to expose Xavier Worthy into that. Tyquan's kind of also another one of those guys. He's fast, but you know, he hasn't been an experienced returner. I wouldn't go down that road. There's I know been some discussion about Cyrus Allen being a returner, not a ton of experience there, and I would not, if I'm Dave Tobe and Andy Reid and Brett Veach, I do not want to put this kid back into the Sky Moore position where you're one botched punt away from just ruining a kid's confidence. So yeah, I wouldn't go down that road. I mean, right now, hey, you're I think your two returners, your top two returners, the two guys who are going to get the first chance up, it's going to be Nico and Brashard Smith again. Doesn't mean those two are going to finish as the guys at the end of camp, but I think they're going to start camp there. So appreciate that. Appreciate it as always, Brenda. Let's see. Yeah, Chiefs Warriors. Glad you've been able to catch the show, and we'll always take the questions. Special teams weaker last couple of years. Now Chanel gone and lost Reed over past few years. Who is going to be the leader for special teams? That's another great question because there's a lot of turnover on this year's special teams. They've lost some guys. I mean, I think the couple of guys that would jump out to me immediately would be, guys that I know are going to be in the thick of things. Assuming that they make the team, and that would be kind of looking at your linebackers, whether it's Cooper McDonald or Jack Cochran. It's possibly both those guys make the team, in which case that would be a good thing because they're both really good special teams players. I think those two could really be a part of the mix. Jaden Canaday has got the potential as a rookie. I think he's going to be a four-team special. I think he's making the team regardless. I mean, I think have to really, really struggle as a nickel corner for the Chiefs not to give him, even if he's the backup nickel behind a Chris Roland Wallace or a Caterco, who I think he absolutely makes this team. So I don't think that's going to be an issue there whatsoever. But he's got the potential. I mean, year one, tough. I mean, but I think he's going to be a four-phase guy that plays, 200 plus snaps, plays a lot. It's depending on who else makes this team. But Jaden Hicks is one of those guys that absolutely should be a leader at this point. We'll see who comes out of it from the corner mix, but Canaday would be my best guess there. One player is going to be interesting is, I'll tell you what, I'm really intrigued by Ethan Downs for a couple of reasons. And that one, the Chiefs drafted R. Mason Thomas. Ethan Downs played opposite of R. Mason Thomas at Oklahoma. I mean, and he's really considered more of a 3-4 linebacker. He's kind of he's not a carbon copy. He doesn't have the skill set R. Mason Thomas does. I mean, he's kind of the poor man's R. Mason Thomas. But as a result, I think he's got the potential to be a really good special teams player. He's not a super big defensive end. I mean, he's kind of, like I said, he's a big outside linebacker. So that's I think going to be the kind of role he plays. He could potentially become a leader, a guy who plays an awful lot. The one guy I think that you would hope that would become this guy, at least at the floor of his NFL career, is Jeff Bassa. That's the guy that, I think the floor, what you were hoping, the floor as a special teams player for Jeff Bassa is that maybe he is like Leo Chanel or Dorian O'Daniel, that, he's just a guy that, hey, for the next 3 years can just be absolutely a lights out special teams player. And maybe he can fit into that Justin Reid role. I mean, he's not dissimilar size, and now Justin Reid obviously was incredibly experienced in the NFL of what he did. I mean, and what he did best, obviously, was going after kicks and going after field goals and extra points. Incredibly talented at that. And I'm not even going to talk about his kicking. Nobody else can kick like Justin Reed. But having that skill set, it takes a lot of time. And so I don't know. And Boston might be a little too big to play that role, but Cooper McDonald, as far as like the role that Leo played on the field goal block team up the middle, he can play that. He's got the skill set to do that. Although once again, I mean, Leo had some skills that just not everybody else has. I mean, he was the strongest player on that team, pound for pound. He could bench press, people who were opposite him on the offensive line. I mean, and then some. I mean, that dude was strong. So you're not going to replace that. But they got a lot of young guys. They're losing a lot of snaps off special teams from, not like you mentioned, not just last year, but even the last 2 years. They're losing a lot of institutional knowledge, so they're going to need some help. But those are some of the names I've seen that I think can absolutely help out this year and maybe end up being big producers for this team. Brian, has Delane got his shoulder right yet? Ready for pads? We'll see. I mean, all indications I got during the mandatory minicamp was that was purely precautionary with Delane. You're not going to push anything in June. You're going to back everybody off. Fact that he was out there watching was a pretty good sign that it wasn't anything serious. So let's see what happens. But I would relax, Brian. I don't think that there's going to be a problem. Remember, you got another a little over a month until pads, because I'm trying to remember. Let's see. Let me do it in my head. 29, 30, let's see, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. 32 would also be known as August 2nd. So August 4th, I guess it's going to be after the break, will be the first day in pads. That's how long you've got until then. I feel pretty good that he's going to be fine by then. So we'll see, Brian, but and saw how much weight you lost, man. I know that's not the way you wanted to do it, but boy, I'm glad you're hanging in there, bud. It's good to have you around. Fat Yankee, how do you think Spags will scheme to defend the Chargers when Ladd and Njoku and Gadsden are on the field together? Does the increase in the use of 12 personnel around the league scare you? Honestly, that doesn't. I mean, I think that for the most part plays in pretty well for what the Chiefs do defensively. And I think Spags and Veach, looking at this year's roster and how it's constituted, I think they're preparing for that, because I get the sense that they're going to be going with a lot more nickel than they have in the past, but it's a big nickel package that they kind of go with. It's they've got the ability to put some tough big guys, and once again, maybe that's a part of the L'Jarius Sneed coming back to this team and everything, that maybe he fits into this, as far as you've got Delane on the outside, you're going to have a Christian Fulton or a Noel Williams on the outside. Hey, whether one of those guys wins the job or it's a matchup week to week about who you think is the better matchup that week could change. And maybe with all three of those guys, maybe it's a rotation a little bit. Maybe there's going to be some weeks that you just don't feel like that Delane's the best matchup. And I know that they do want to this year keep these guys, locked in on left and right side. So there's not going to be the rotation that you've seen in the past. The one rotation you're going to see is that I think the Chiefs are going to have a lot of nickel and dime packages, but it's going to be heavy. You might see more this year dime defensive secondaries with four safeties on the field, and four safeties would be the reason why, against a lot more 12 personnel, a lot more double tight ends, because now you're fitting a bigger, stronger safety. And hey, that's what Shamari Connor's been doing, is, obviously been playing a lot of slot guys, but if he's your strong safety, you bring in, if it's Jaden Hicks, if it's Chris Roland Wallace, you bring in another safety, and now you got one of those guys on each side of the field, and you can handle two side tight end sets, a tight end on each side, and you can move guys around a little bit. You can flex a little bit, and I think that it fits in also with the Chiefs in the sense that I don't know if they're going to have a drop from what they had at linebacker last few years anyway. I mean, I like Cooper McDonald. Jack Cochran's been serviceable, but neither one of them are L'Jarius Sneed. they're not going to be the same player. And Lee only played 50% of the snaps anyway. So remember, the Chiefs, went with a lot of nickel packages as it was and multiple defensive backs. I just think that they're going to go a little bit heavier this year. I mean, we'll see who ends up winning that slot job, and the slot job's a little bit different, but like I said, I can see the Chiefs, go into plenty of. I think they're going to play a lot more dime this year, and like I said, not necessarily three corners and three safeties, but maybe two corners and four safeties to go with some bigger packages, so that you don't have a 5'10" corner or a slower Jack Cochran on a linebacker and getting matched up. I mean, you'd much rather have a Drew Tranquil, who's a decent coverage linebacker. You'd like to avoid situations where you're getting, Nick Bolton on a speedy tight end. I mean, that's obviously one thing that I think the matchup, obviously, the Chargers would like to do. I mean, I think they'd love to take Njoku and Gadsden and try and run them at Nick Bolton and get him into the wash a little bit. And Ladd's a matchup nightmare for anybody. But yeah, I think and against the Chargers, maybe you do adapt a little bit. Although, once again, I mean, I think that you're talking about, if you're taking off a linebacker, you're going to be going with a safety most of the time. And again, maybe that's where Chamari Connor fits in. I mean, the Connor can cover a tight end. Let's put it this way. I'm much more comfortable with Chamari Connor covering tight ends than covering Ladd in the slot. So that's where I think you benefit a little bit from moving Connor back to strong safety full time, is that if he is going to cover anybody, you want him on a tight end and not a speedy receiver. So I think that's a better matchup for you. But it's a good question. I think that's going to be one of the things that they absolutely have to solve, especially with the turnover that they've got in the secondary. They've got to figure out what the best job for all these guys are, because it's going to be different. Yeah. Hey, Chiefs Warriors. Everybody should want the fullback position to come back, and everything's cyclical. It'll be back one day. Brian, Andy runs per game over under 20 times. So 20 touches will get you 340 as a backfield. I'm going to say over. I mean, I know that hey, it's Andy Reid. There's going to be some games where things get away from you, and maybe they're down early, and all of a sudden, you look up in the fourth quarter and they've had 13 runs. Not saying that's not going to happen, but no, I think they're going to get over that. So I'm going to bet the over. Hey, if 1,000 plays and you ran the ball 34 times, I mean, I know that's 34%. I think you're going to be over that. So I think hey, they could get to 400 touches, on the ground, possibly. I mean, I think they'd have to win some games, but to get there and be up. So I think you'd have to at least be comfortable with like an 11-6 season to get there, maybe 12-5. But I would take I'd take the average on the over. I'm going to take the over, Brian. Oh, wow, Brian! I see you walked a solid 50 miles. My goodness, good going, friend. Yeah, Bobby, I'm telling you. I mean, I'm not exactly middle. I mean, because I'm off to the side a little bit, but yeah, I'm going to be like midpoint between training camp, driving St. Joe. And here's the thing: is that I mean, I don't know if it'll happen for sure in 2031. They might wait a year to just see how things work out and ease into it, but 2032 was probably the latest I would expect that the Chiefs would still be in St. Joe. They're going to move to the training facility. I mean, the training facility is being built to handle training camp, so they're building it for like 120 players to be in there. So they're going to be ready. Not that well, actually, maybe building it for 120 players because they might be ready for college and for they're trying to prepare for a 2038 World Cup too. So who knows what's going to happen there. Chris, was I an Eagle Scout as well? No, I was not. I joined just as my age-wise was progressing to wee below, and this will tell you how long my interest was still in the Boy Scouts. I was still a wee below when I quit. So not the most spectacular of Boy Scout careers, and I mean, there wasn't really any particular reason why. I mean, I like my scout leader fine and everything. Although I'm trying to remember, my scout leader may have changed, and that might have been one of the reasons why. Um, when you would go up a level and everything like that. So I don't really remember the reason why I dropped out of the Boy Scouts, but yeah, it just I guess my heart and my passion wasn't in it, Chris. But I enjoyed my time as a Weebelo. There was no doubt about that. And it should come as no surprise that I worked really, really hard. I studied everything to be able to get my officiating badge, and I don't think that anybody ever let me test for it. So I don't think I ever got it. I'm still a little salty about that. But hey, I memorized all of the officiating calls for all the sports. So I there's I, I've forgotten a lot of them. I'm still on all of the ones for football, obviously, and baseball, but probably most of the ones in basketball. I don't know if I don't even know if back then they made us learn the ones for soccer. Probably not. Chiefs Warriors. Speaking of tight ends, do you think the Chiefs would have drafted Sadiq if they didn't draft Delane? I don't. I mean, I know that there were a lot of Chiefs fans were on the Sadiq bandwagon, and I think there was some interest in him from the Chiefs, but I think they just felt like that they had too many other holes. If they did not go for Delane there, I think they would have been very happy taking a receiver. If the receiver that they didn't want there, I think they would have been very happy going defensive line. I think all of those would have been choices that they went to before Sadiq, and hey, we'll see how it ends up. I mean, that's the way I would have gone too. Not that I don't like Sadiq. I get the love for him and everything, but I I just don't think that he would have been the perfect fit for the Chiefs. But I could be wrong. John, thought on Nick Bolton going into the Mizzou Hall of Fame. I love it. Glad for Nick. I mean, he's a true son, as we like to say. Still enjoys his Mizzou. He gets back to Columbia every once in a while. I know that, and so even with all the changes, because I'm trying to remember. I think Barry Odom recruited him, and I know he finished up his career under Eli, but he's got a good relationship with everybody back there, and he's well liked, and I think that's a pretty good indication about why he's in. And obviously, what first Mizzou Tiger ever to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl, so nothing not to like about that. So, yep. Happy for Nick. That's awesome. And I think that's great. And the way that he got to hear about it and hearing about it from Andy Reid, a former Tiger himself, that was pretty cool. I enjoyed seeing that. Fat Yankee was coming up here. Let's see if I can get it. What is going on here? I have lost control of the ability to. There we go. It was just on the delay. Who plays the fullback role if there is no fullback? Noah Gray, Peter Woods. I mean, the fullback role in the Chiefs offense has gone, pretty much gone from the system. But yeah, I mean, they've used tight ends in that role. I mean, they put some guys in the backfield. They've got some special squirrely packages with Kelsey in the backfield, but he's never, a fullback role. And if he ever does line up as a fullback, it's just as a means to motioning him back out of it and getting the defense's eyes to move around a little bit. Noah Gray or whomever their third tight end, has been in that spot. I tell you what, though, and this is, with people, talking about short yardage, third down, and Kareem Hunt, and how good Kareem was last year in third down situations and short yardage, 4th and 1, all of those plays, goal line situations. Peter Woods is one of those dudes. I'm glad you brought it up because I don't think enough people are talking about Peter Woods as a potential short yardage back. And I'm not saying he's going to get as many touches as he did at Clemson. Like, he's going to get 12 touches or anything like that. I think it's going to be more than one. I mean, we'll see if it works. You'll see more of it. If it doesn't work, if it gets stopped or fumbles, they'll bring an end to it pretty quickly. But I think you're going to see some. I think you're going to see some Peter Woods out there getting the football on some handoffs. So I think you're definitely going to see that. Yeah, Joe. I mean, that's the thing is that you're a little bit, I think, at the whim of your scout leaders and organizations with scouts about how far you go into it. And, for me, I don't even remember. I think we had an Eagle Scout in my school, in high school. I feel like there was somebody, but, again, I didn't like that you didn't like progress with your scout leaders, that you didn't have like the same ones, and that you picked up new scout leaders when you went from like Webelow up the ladder and Cub to Webelow and everything. Because when I signed up for the scouts, my mom and one of her friends was going to be our den moms and everything as Cub Scouts. And then I learned after I joined, like a few months later, that I was old enough to progress to Webelow, so I moved up to Webelows. So then I didn't get to be in that den anymore. So and one of my friends, his dad was one of our scout leaders. So Webelows was fun. Man, they did a Halloween haunted house for the scouts that just still terrifies me to this day. Um, was that good? I guess that realistic. But yeah, it's all about your leaders. If you got some good scout leaders, scouts is great, and I can see you progressing a long way. So I think at this point, unless I've missed somebody, I think we have caught up to everything. So I'm going to do last call. If anybody's got any more questions, make sure you fire away, and I'll get you in here and everything. Chiefs Warrior, first time you caught this live. I appreciate that. Thanks for coming in and being a part of the discussion. You've had some great questions and contributions tonight. Hope you enjoy the community here and can make it back. Everybody here is great and a lot of fun to hang out with. Certain days and times you do the Q&A lives every Tuesday at 7:00. So you can always catch it here. Every once in a while, I have to move it for some discrepancies, and every once in a while we'll do an emergency one, but you can always count, for the most part, 98% of the time, Tuesdays at 7 we'll be here. So feel free to join us then. Let's see, where were you, Brian? I should bring up Brian's while we're waiting for any closing questions and final thoughts here, because Brian always does a really good job of making sure that I remind people to like what you see here. Make sure you are following Chiefs Digest on YouTube if you're there. Assuming if you're watching on Twitter, you already follow me and Matt Derrick on Twitter. Not many people on Facebook, but hey, you can find Chiefs Digest on Facebook as well. So if you want to go over there and like Chiefs Digest, more power to you. That would be awesome. Nick and I, we're going to be doing some more off-season breakdowns on Sunday on 41 is the Mic. Sorry, this episode, this past Sunday, was out late. Didn't get out until Monday. That was my fault because I overslept on Sunday. So it was all my fault. Blame me. I'm just scrolling through, make sure there weren't any other questions that I missed, but absolutely by far, always hit the like button. I appreciate that. Fat Yankee, on campus training part is part of Andy's way. Is he going to be long gone by the time they move training camp to the training facility? I mean, that's probably going to be the one hang up. I mean, Andy loves going away for camp. He just likes, the camaraderie of it. He likes I think the uncomfortableness to a degree that it puts on the team, but he really likes the fact that it kind of forces everybody to come together and spend some time together and learn things about each other. And they all have to go through the same struggles together. It's not like, I think one of the things I think he loves the most about, a campus training camp is, he's got these long drive days where it's going to be 90 degrees, heat index is 100. Everybody's just sweating like crazy. There's probably somebody who's vomited that day on the field. Offense and the defense, number one teams, are out there for 17 straight plays going at it. And then afterwards, they got nowhere to go. They go have lunch together and try to recover. And then they got afternoon meetings and do all of that. And then that night, after, everything winds down, they can all get together and be like, oh, that long drive today, that stunk. I likes the camaraderie of all of that and how it all comes together. And like I said, making guys feel uncomfortable and keeping them together so that it's not, you go into work, you put in your 8 to 5, you go home and you don't see anybody till the next day. he thinks it builds a team, and I can't say that he's wrong because he seemed to have had a lot of success over the years, and Andy Reid's done nothing but campus training camp, so it works for him, and he definitely doesn't like to change things that are working. So yes, I think that the key to moving training camp to the new facility will be Andy Reid departing. What his contract right now runs, I believe, through 2030, so it runs through when the stadium's going to be built. We'll see if Andy Reid coaches in the new stadium. That's going to be a question that comes up down the road too. So we'll see how long Andy Reid sticks around with it. But so they're not going to move training camp at this point. I cannot imagine them removing training camp from St. Joe until the new facility is built. So that would preclude, even if like Andy Reid were to retire, let's just say for giggles that he retired after the 2027 season, the Chiefs 2028 training camp is not going to be at their building. Their building cannot handle training camp. It's not big enough. So not going to happen. I thought it was going to break when they had 104 players in for the rookie mini camp. They pulled it off, but they did. That was for 3 days. So no, it's not a long-term solution for a training camp at their own building. And they're not going to go into the time and effort to move training camp for 3-4 years to another campus. So I think it's going to be in St. Joe until it's not, and then we'll go back to their new facility, and which is going to be built for it. So you got that going for you. Joe, do you feel like Worthy may go over 1,000 yards this season? It's possible. I think it's going to depend on a couple of factors. Obviously, one is staying available and staying healthy. If he can be out there for a full season and doesn't get dinged up, and then once again, it's the crazy thing that the Chiefs talked about that, everybody talked about Xavier Worthy being, too small to be able to stand up to a 17 game season. And in 2024, he was the only Chiefs receiver that made it through a 17 game season. Last year, hey, the injury in week 1 caught up with him. If he can play a full season, I think he's got a chance. If he plays a full season and Rashee Rice misses any time for any reason, he's got a really good chance. If Rice, when Rice plays, he's going to be the primary receiver most of the time, even over Travis Kelce. He's the guy that's going to get the most of the work. But I could see absolutely, hey, the Chiefs have been there before where they've had a couple of, 1,000-yard receivers. I don't think that Travis Kelce is still a 1,000-yard receiver. If he gives you between 800 and 900 yards this season, that's a really good season for Travis Kelce. Worthy, if they can get him some more big plays, then I think obviously that's going to give him more of a chance. But is it better than 50-50? It's probably about there. Once again, I feel like if Rashee Rice plays 17 games, I feel like he's 80-90% to get to 1,000 yards. He's that good. He's that integral to the offense. Worthy's the next option. So if they have to play without Rashee Rice, Worthy's numbers should absolutely go up. And so I think that increases his chances. He hasn't been a 1,000-yard caliber receiver for a period of time yet, but he wasn't a primary target in year 1 and was banged up in year 2. I think he's got the talent. 1,000 yards, I think, is his guy, is his level. I don't think he's like a 1,600-yard guy. I think Rashee Rice is like a 1,200-yard guy because I think he's proven that in a couple of stretches now. It's just that he hasn't gone over that to be like, the Chiefs think he's a true number 1, which means that he should be in that 1,500, 1,600-yard capability. And I think he is, if once again, he can play all 17 games. Just that he hasn't been able to do that yet, outside of his rookie year. And he was 1,000-yard receiver. He was there his rookie year. He was in that ballpark. So he's got that potential. It's just he's got to take it up to the next level and stay on the field. But Worthy, I think, is, and that's, hey, has anybody else got the potential? I don't think so right now. Hey, could Cyrus Allen play himself into that in a couple of years? Maybe. But those are the only two guys I think you have right now that you would say are capable of 1,000 yards, being a 1,000-yard receiver, and that's Rice and Worthy. Chiefs Warriors, who's winning the division this year? Long way to go, but right now, honestly, I would pick the Chiefs. I think they're going to bounce back. I think the offense is going to be better. I have more concerns about the defense. than I do about the offense. Even though I have a couple of questions, I'm worried about tight end. I think you have to have a little bit of worry about just how the offense is going to fit together with Kenneth Walker and how that, I mean, I think it's going to mesh very nicely. I think the offense is going to be better. I'm just worried about the depth at tight end. That's primarily it. I got a lot more questions on the defensive side because I think the defense could take a step backwards. It could be worse this year than it was last year. Almost, I mean, that would be the likely outcome given how much they have lost from last year's team. But I think the offense is going to be better and make up for that. So, and I think it's going to be significantly better. So, yeah, I mean, I think the Chiefs are an 11 win type team. And I still do not believe in Bo Nix. So I feel like at some point the Broncos are going to take a step backwards. And this may be the year that they kind of struggle and maybe they do take a step backwards. Bo Nix also returned from an injury, remember, too. So I don't know what he's going to look like this year. Maybe he and Mahomes will both struggle a little bit. Chargers, I like the Chargers. They once again have nothing but bad luck, so I assume that we'll catch up with them at some point. I still think they're also a kind of incomplete team, but these three teams are at least closer than they have all been to each other in a long time. So it's not going to be easy, but I certainly, I mean, it's going to come down to divisional games. If one team can get to 5-1 in the division, they're going to win it, and I think the Chiefs can do that. They put an emphasis on divisional games. So unless things are just a complete catastrophe like they were last year, I think they can win the division. And it might be at 11-6 with a couple of teams, 10-7 right on their heels. I wouldn't be surprised if all three of those teams are playoff teams. And yes, I'm ignoring the Vegas Raiders because I'm not sold on that situation whatsoever. Mario Mendoza, maybe he is him, but I don't think he's going to be him as a rookie this year. And they've got plenty of other problems too. So one quarterback and Tom Brady is not going to fix the Raiders overnight. They got a long way to go. Nikki, does the away camp make them more of a team as opposed to just workmates? I mean, that's essentially what Andy Reid believes. And I think there's something to it. There are absolutely introverts in the NFL, guys that just kind of keep to themselves a little bit and are quiet. I mean, I'm an introvert, so I get that. And I mean, hey, being in those situations, it does that. I mean, I avoided a lot of those kind of things when I was younger. And sometimes, probably the one I regret the most in retrospect, I had a spot at Boise State in Missouri, which I mean, I know there's pros and cons and everything like that, but I was absolutely nervous as all get out about it. I was just so apprehensive about it because I was not comfortable in those situations whatsoever. It just gave me hives and panic attacks and everything, and I was just absolutely stressing out about going away to Boise State, for weeks on end leading up to it. And as it turned out, my mom ended up, filing for divorce a week before, Boise State. So I just used that as an excuse to not go. I regret it. I mean, I know my mom probably didn't need me that much. I mean, she didn't have to worry about anything. And the divorce was great news. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't my dad or anything. It was just, yeah. So there's some insight into my life growing up. She didn't need me around. She would have been fine. And she wanted me to go, actually. I was just using it as an excuse because I was absolutely terrified to go away. It would have been good for me. And there are players on the Chiefs team that I know are introverts and keep to themselves. So, being in a camp environment where you practice together and then you go to lunch and, it's pretty hard in an environment like that to just be the guy that's at camp and you're on your phone and you're sitting by yourself or anything. I mean, you end up sitting at college lunch tables in the cafeteria. It forces you to kind of, be around your teammates, and you're in the dorms and you got a roommate. And, when you're younger guys on the team, you gotta be around and be a veteran before you get a room to yourself and get on the top floor where you don't have somebody above you making noise all night. So yeah, I mean, I think it does. I mean, it would, once again, it would probably give me panic attacks and probably and another one of the many reasons I'm not in the NFL or professional sports, because environments like that would terrify me. But I think it does. Andy Reid certainly seems to think it does, and I don't think you can argue with the success that he's had over the years. Chiefs Warriors. How much confidence Mahomes is starting week 3 versus the Raiders? You live in Vegas thinking of going to the game? I mean, I would probably say my confidence is like 99%. I mean, I'm 99%. I think he's going to start week 1. There's going to be there's some thoughts that, if the Chiefs are being very, very cautious and they just want to give him the most time to ramp up. I mean, there's I don't want to call it conspiracy theories because it's not quite that, but there is the theory that if he's not 100% and you just want to get him as close to 100% as you can, he's not. Let's face it, the man's not going to be 100% at all this season. Nobody is coming back from an ACL. But if you just want to give him a little bit more time, then obviously he could sit the first 4 weeks, get through the bye week, and then come back in week 6. I think he's going to play as soon as he's ready. And I think Mahomes is going to feel ready to go week 1. I think he's going to feel ready to go before that. I think he's going to play. He's going to want to play a preseason game just to get a hit out of the way and see what he can do. So if you want to wait and see what happens, that would be your latest indication that he's going to start the season and be out there against the Raiders. And that's week 4, right? Maybe I'm mistaken, but I was thinking that was week 4. Yeah. I think he'll start the season, but you'll know by the preseason games. If he plays in the first preseason game, then you know for sure that he's going to be starting week 1, barring a setback or injury wise. So I would feel pretty comfortable right now. I mean, no guarantees. We never give that here, but yeah, I think he will be playing in week 4. So, Brian, which rookie excites you the most at this point? Ooh, intriguing question. Man, I think I would have it down to 2 at this point. And for me, it's Peter Woods and Cyrus Allen. And I know I should be more excited about Mansour Delane, but part of it is that I just feel pretty good about what Mansour Delane's going to be. I think he's going to be really good, and he might have a learning curve. I mean, I wouldn't be worried about that. If he is what he was in college, teams are going to test him, and he might give up some plays early, but my gut says that he's eventually going to be a shutdown guy, and he's eventually going to be a guy that you don't throw to. So it's almost like he doesn't excite me that much because I think at some point he's going to be a guy that you just avoid, and he's not Marcus Peters. And Marcus Peters was a lot of fun to watch because for good and bad, for both teams. Because Marcus loved to set people up. He loved to take chances. So it meant that he was going to get a lot of turnovers and a lot of interceptions and make a bunch of plays. And he was every once in a while just going to get clobbered and beaten so bad that, hey, the other team got to have fun too. So I don't think Delane's that way. I mean, Delane might have some early losses, but I think at some point in his rookie year, he's going to figure it out. He's just going to be a shutdown guy, and teams aren't going to challenge him. So it's watching Delane. Honestly, it's going to be a little bit like watching paint dry because I think he's just going to be one of those guys that teams don't throw at. And maybe that's going to happen from day one, although I think every rookie gets challenged, but there's going to be some other places in the Chiefs secondary to challenge too. So I think it's just going to take Delane making a couple of plays, and teams are going to be like, okay, we're going to look for some other spots to throw the ball. Peter Woods is exciting to me just because I think he could be a game wrecker. I think he has got Chris Jones type potential. I'm not putting that kind of pressure on the kid, but I think he's got the ability to be that good. And once again, any rookie right outside the box is going to be tough. But that's one of the things that excites me about Peter Woods, just the explosion. The other guy I'm excited about is Cyrus Allen. Again, it might take him a while to ramp up, but I could see him having a really strong year as a rookie, maybe 400 yards. Like I said, be a good number for me. And I think the kid's got potential. I mean, I don't have the confidence to say, okay, hey, the Chiefs just found themselves on day 3, 1,000-yard receiver who's going to be a future number 1 and the next Justin Jefferson. I'm not saying that, but I think he's going to be a really fun receiver to watch. And, over the next 4 years, maybe get you 3,000 yards or so, maybe more than that, and a bunch of touchdowns. I mean, he's a guy that can make plays. So I'm excited about all those guys. There's nobody in this rookie class that I don't think is interesting and intriguing, but those two guys are, I think, right now the two guys that I'm excited to see the most and see what they can do year one. Yeah, Joe. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, losing Leo is going to be tough. I mean, even though, like I said, he only played 50% of the defensive snaps, he was good on those snaps, and he was a great special teams player. So you're going to miss Leo this year. Brian, if Rice stays healthy and plays all 17 games, is he virtually guaranteed 100 yards, or is it just me? His yards per game pace suggests it. Um, I think you're going for 1,000 yards, right? For 1,000 yards on the season, not like 100 yards per game, because he's averaged about both. I think last year and in those first 3 games. I'm not counting 4 games since he got hurt too early in the fourth game, but those first 3 games of 2024 and all of 2025, he averaged like 72 yards a game, I think, in both those seasons. That gets you to 1,200 yards. So I think, I mean, virtually guaranteed to be 1,000 if he plays all 17. Yeah, I think I would sign off on that, because I say you did say 1,000 yards. I would sign off on that. Yeah, if he plays all 17 games, he should be 1,000-yard receiver. It will be disappointment if he's not 1,000-yard receiver if he plays all 17 games. It would probably also tell me that something else has gone wrong, like Patrick Mahomes didn't play anywhere close to 17 games, or Kenneth Walker played 3 games. There were some other injuries and other problems that's took this team down. But even then, I mean, in any scenario where Rashee Rice plays 17 games, he is going to be the number one target on this team. So yeah, I think if he plays that, he should be 1,000-yard receiver. The question then would just be, what's the ceiling? So. And like you said, surely he can get 60 yards a game. I mean, if he's going to be the guy he's been the last couple of years, he should be getting 70. And if he's healthy, I mean, better than 72 yards per game is not out of the question. Not at all. John, as a journalist, how difficult is it to ask tough questions when there's a fine line when it comes to getting access to players and coaches? I mean, there is a line, but again, it's choosing the place and the opportunity. And I mean, I don't want this to come away too harshly, because there are some situations where you only get people in this environment, that you only get a coach or a player at a podium. But I would I want to say that at least 75% of the time, maybe 90%, maybe as high as 90% of the time, but it's a high number. I'm just saying it's a high number. If you're asking tough questions at a podium, I think you're probably doing a little grandstanding, because that's not the place to do it. It really isn't the place to do it. If for no other reason, then you can't guarantee the flow of the conversation at a press conference and a podium. You can't guarantee that you're going to be able to get a follow-up question on that topic. And like I said, I mean, Andy Reid, we generally, for the most part, don't get in any environment but a podium. And I will say this, that if I've got tough questions, and I have had tough questions in the past that I have wanted to ask Andy Reid, and I have gone to public relations and given them the opportunity that has said, hey, I'm going to ask Andy Reid this question. If you would rather him answer off the podium to me directly afterwards, I would be great with that. I mean, obviously, it's a little bit. I mean, I won't lie. I mean, there's some self benefit to that as well. That if I'm the only one that's got the answer to my tough question, then I'm feeling pretty good about it. And obviously, it doesn't preclude the fact that somebody may ask it at the podium. So then it doesn't matter. But again, if you want the best answers and you want to be able to have a follow up conversation, asking at a podium is the most difficult. I've never had a problem asking a player a tough question one-on-one to their face, because one, I think that's the appropriate way to do it, if at all possible. And honestly, by and large, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Even though Travis does sometimes not answer questions, especially after games. I mean, that's been an issue um, that we've had. You know, I can say that I have always been able, maybe not always when I want to, but when I have had a tough question to ask Travis, I've had an opportunity to do it to his face. And I mean, I've asked, I think I have asked him probably tough questions on the podium too, I feel like, but um, I think the toughest questions I've ever asked anybody are off a podium. And if I have asked somebody a really tough question when they're on the podium, that's because I have no other choice. I just don't think it's the best line of conversation for those types of conversations. So I try to do it in any other way possible. Now, again, that makes it difficult, particularly with coaches. And it's why, hey, sometimes things got adversarial between reporters and Bob Sutton, and they've gotten adversarial between Andy Reid and reporters in the past. But again, like I said, if I've got somebody who does not talk off of a podium, and I've got a tough question that I want to ask, I will always give the opportunity to the team public relations department to have that conversation off the podium. And I'll grant it, I think in almost every instance when I have done that, they have said, go ahead and ask it at the podium. And I get that too. I mean, because they like it for the exact same reason that I don't, because I can't guarantee a flow to the conversation. You can't guarantee a very natural answer. You know, a lot of times, especially with a coach and especially with a guy like Andy Reid, if he doesn't want to answer something, Andy Reid's not going to answer it. So, not saying you have a better chance off the podium, but I think you do have a better chance off the podium. I know this is a really long answer, John. Sorry to digress a little bit, but um, I mean, like I said, I don't like asking those on the podium. I have no problems asking those questions off the podium because again, I think that's the way it's supposed to be. If you got tough questions, you should be able to look a person in the eye and ask them that question. And sometimes, like I said, not every kid, not every time, but there's sometimes, and I think that there have been times when, colleagues, both in Kansas City and around the country, I've seen it happen in other places and other markets where I think people ask tough questions just simply because they were trying to maybe get a little attention or put on a show. And I'll gladly admit that maybe I'm misreading the situation sometimes, but I especially when it comes to players, like I said, if you got a tough question for anybody, you give them a chance one-on-one. I mean, if I've had tough questions for Travis. I've asked, if you want to get a tough question for Patrick Mahomes is in the locker room every Friday, and he won't turn you down. If you said, "Hey, Patrick, I got a question. It's a tough question." I've never seen Patrick Mahomes turn somebody down for a short question. So he's not going to do a scrum, anything like that. But if you got a question, he's there. And like I said, to his credit, I've never seen him turn anybody down. Chris Jones has probably turned some people down. Travis has done it in the past, but at the same time, that they have also both answered questions. So I'm not going to say never with either one of those guys. But and here's the other thing I will say. I do feel a little bit spoiled because the toughest questions that you're ever going to ask, honestly, are when teams are not any good. And last year was obviously the toughest year that I've ever covered with the Chiefs, as far as just, week in and week out having tough experiences and everything. And, and it was, there were some difficult times, and there were also times that you were asking difficult questions and not getting answers. There were some things going on and people didn't necessarily talk about it. And you try your best, but you can't always guarantee it. So last year was a strange year. I will say that. And probably, like I said, the only thing that was worse than that was probably Bob Sutton's last year. That was a tough year too. And there were some rough exchanges, and that I'm thinking of one in particular, and I don't blame the reporter for it, and I'm not going to quote it or anything. There's probably a few of you that might even know what I'm talking about. But it wasn't the reporter's fault. It was just kind of maybe Bob Sutton kind of joking about his situation and having complete self-awareness of his situation, but it was tough. That was a tough year. Yeah, Joe, I think the lane is going to be better than Marcus Peters at his best was really, really good, but he's not going to have the risk reward that you have with Peters. I think he's going to be more reliable. Hey, if he can be like an Albert Lewis kind of guy, then you have just won the draft. That would be great. Nikki, how did you come out of your shell to be a journalist? I never did. I mean, I'm still a big time introvert. There's no doubt about it, and I get better year by year. Just the more comfortable that I get, and I will gladly admit this. I there were definitely times I just had to screw up my courage and do some things in my first few years back in. I mean, I was a reporter early in my media days, and then I went over to public relations, and even then, I mean, I was a introverted PR person, so it wasn't easy for me. I mean, when I had weeks that I had to do pitches and everything like that, that was the most stressful weeks of the year. I was sweating bullets doing that. But when I came back over to journalism, I mean, there's a lot of things I just love about it. Just informing people, and getting to do this. I mean, for whatever reason, there's a rush to it. It's not even just the knowing something that other people don't know yet, but why I wanted to be a journalist in the first place, and once upon a time wanted to be a quote unquote real journalist, was to the romantic part of it, of just being able to let people know what's going on in the world and in their communities. And I still wish in a lot of ways that I'd had the courage and the gumption to maybe go into, like I said, quote unquote, real journalism. There's not a lot of real journalism going on these days, so we could have that conversation and everything. But um, I mean, sports is fun, and it's people enjoy it. It's hard sometimes when people are not enjoying sports because their team is losing, and then it's not quite as enjoyable. But I think that the vast majority of fans, 98, 99%, even when their team is not winning, they still find a way to embrace the enjoyment of it. There's just, 1%, 2% of us that, might take it a little bit too much and let it factor into the rest of our lives. And I know the studies and everything like that will say, hey, people at work are like 55% more productive after their team wins on Sunday than they are otherwise. And there's an increase in violence after teams lose and all these things. I'd like to think that there's just some randomness to it, and it's not sports fault. That's a whole other conversation. But getting back to the original question, Nikki, I never did. I'm still terrified most of the time. Having admitting to the panic attacks that I get and being treated for it has certainly helped over the years. So I'm a little bit better at it. But I'm also, I heard just some words, about this understanding that, there's different levels of introversion. I mean, I get to be very comfortable with people once I've been around them. And obviously, I mean, I get nervous doing this still, even though it's just one person, because hey, I think to myself, hey, I'm going to say the wrong thing. Something I say is going to be taken out of context, and it's not going to look good for me, or people are going to be, annoyed or angry. I mean, I have all those doubts and everything like that goes through this, and worry about how fat I look and all those insecurities. So even doing this, I still have those, but I mean, honestly, it took me a couple of years before I really got comfortable around the team, just because I knew people, and there was enough people around that I felt comfortable with. My first year, gosh, I'd have to go back and look at the roster. There were I had a reporter, I had a fellow reporter who had connected me with James Winchester. So he was like one of the first people that I met, and James was really cool with me. He's a really good dude. So that kind of helped, and he introduced me to some people and everything like that. So that kind of helped out in the early days. I leaned on the Mizzou connection with Mitch Morse. So Mitch was one of the first people that I introduced myself to, and it was, fortunate having the Mizzou connection with Mitch Morse of all people, because Mitch is just maybe the most friendly, laid back player that I've ever met. And he's not laid back on a football field. Don't take that the wrong way. Mitch was, he flipped that switch, but you just talk about, I've never, I don't, I mean, you have this job, you don't hang out with players in, normal situations, go have beers with everybody. There might be some of those switch situations. I mean, obviously we read the tabloids these days, there's some of those situations. But Mitch was just, really comfortable. And there was probably a couple of others. And I've always been somebody that, hey, I'm not as, hey, Chiefs Digest isn't as big as everything else. And from the very beginning, Herbie Teope and I, when we got this whole thing started, when Herbie was running the place, we specialized in, covering the players that in situations that other people weren't covering, not covering the podiums as much and talking about other players. So, I did some stories over the years and everything like that. I mean, I remember when Jordan Lucas had his kind of breakout with the Chiefs a little bit, and and the whole Lucas Smoke locomotive started, getting to be a thing and everything. He was he was somebody that I introduced myself when he came and made the team and everything. So for the longest time, he was like, "Hey, you're the only reporter that talks to me." So he's like, "Hey, anything you ever need," and that's kind of been my specialty over the years is hey, there's too many people writing about certain players. There's at some point we've run out of stories about them because everybody's talked about them. But I try to go the other. If there's and I've said this before, if there's 12 reporters in a locker room around somebody's locker talking about them, I'm more likely, especially at this point in my career. I was a little bit of a scrummer back in the early days. But these days, like I said, if I see 12 people in a scrum around a locker, I'm going to another part of the locker room because I'm going to go talk to somebody that's not being talked to because I want those stories that nobody else has. And like I said, I thought, yeah, Jordan Lucas was one of those guys. Marcus, gosh, who am I thinking of? Oh my goodness. Gosh, I feel terrible about that. I'm forgetting people's names and everything. But that's probably honestly been one of the more satisfying parts of my career is that when I would have had, because I've had a couple of those conversations similar to the Jordan Lucas, when guys who have all of a sudden, maybe stepped in and become starters and or kind of become growing into themselves and, are like, hey, there was a time when you were the only person that talked to me. So, I'll always talk to you. That feels pretty good. I mean, I don't know if that's supposed to feel good. That's unprofessional, but that's unprofessional and I don't care. Oh gosh, I'm rambling here, everybody. Sorry about that. Chiefs Warriors, who do you feel is friendliest to you handling media questions? Man, I've pulled out a few there and everything like that. Marcus Kemp, by the way, yes, Marcus was one of those guys that was the same way. I should have mentioned him as well. There's a lot that are friendly and handling questions and everything like that, and I think once again it's because of my size and everything. I think that's why the offensive line guys relate to me. So and I'm pretty comfortable over there. That's a good group. I mean, I could single out a lot of people on this team that are good players and and are friendly. I don't know if I think sometimes his answers can be a little, how shall I put this? I don't mean this in a bad way. Um, Sometimes maybe they're too clinical is about the best way to put it. But um, I mean, Harrison Butker has almost never turned down an opportunity to talk about kicking. I mean, he'll talk to anybody about it, and I do really respect that. Yeah, I mean, I think because of just the fact that I've covered James as long as I have, and and that's one thing that kind of inside baseball here a little bit. But hey, honestly, this is another one of the things that honestly I honestly do feel proud about is that Winchester's one of those endorsers. There's a couple of those. One of the players last year, and I won't single it out, even though I've already singled out James Winchester. But Winchester's done the same thing with guys like Matt. He did just Matt Ariza, and and like I said, offensive lineman did for the last year did this for me. Did the same thing with a couple of guys with Essa Pillay, with Josh Simmons. When I introduced myself and everything, said, "Hey, yeah, Matt's one of the guys who will treat you right. He always treats you fair. So don't be worried about him." And I feel like that's been good because hey, it's my job. I've got to occasionally say bad things about everybody in this team. I mean, I've had to criticize Patrick Mahomes. It's the reality of the job. So I mean, it's what you do. But as long as my subjects think I'm fair and that I'm not just trying to be a jerk and that I'm not being objective. And hey, I remember one time I asked a bad question at after a game that the Chiefs lost, and it was a road game, and I wish I could remember who it was. But I had in my mind that they didn't have any sacks in the second half of the game, and I was just one of the questions I asked was just like, what happened to the pass rush in the second half? And he's like, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, you had I think 2 sacks in the first half and none in the second." And he's like, "I don't think you're right." And he was not happy with me. And what, Wednesday when we were back in the locker room, and I went over to him and I was like, "You're right. I asked a dumb question. I had my facts wrong, and it was a dumb question." And he's like, "That's why we like you." Well, because I'll admit when I'm wrong. So, like I said, I probably rambled on too much about the whole thing, the whole topic. But I do like a little bit about talking about the inside baseball of it, and I do like giving players props for answering questions. And this has been generally a pretty good locker room for the most part. I mean, there were problems. I'm not gonna lie, there were problems last year. There were some guys who ducked things, and guys that shouldn't have been ducking things because they owed some accountability. And I've been honest. I'm not always happy with the fact that Travis doesn't always live up to his contractual media obligations, and particularly the fact that he, kind of uses his podcast as a media outlet when, I mean, not saying Jason doesn't ask a couple of tough questions, but he doesn't get the world's toughest questions from Jason. Um, but and hey, there were Rashee Rice walked out of the locker room after games at times last year. That's after losses, and it's not great. I give credit to the guys who stick in there though, and who will answer questions. And hey, Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, there's a couple of them right there. I know not everybody has the same, I guess, probably relationships with some players. I've never really had a problem with Chris Jones telling me no, even if he just gives me short answers or anything of that nature. He's never walked away from me or anything like that. I know that not everybody has the same relationship with some players, and I'd like to say that that's once again. I hopefully that's me having built a positive relationship with these guys. But Chiefs are pretty good. They've got a pretty good locker room right now, so got no problems there. And I've said it before, and and hey, I know things weren't always great. I was covering the end of his career, but I will always remember Tamba Hali. He missed that first half of the 20. I think that was 2016 season. I think it was 16 or 17. Chiefs were playing in Dallas, and I had been in, I think, the quarterback press conference. So I came back into the locker room, and Tombo was the only guy that I wanted to talk to. It was like his first game back after having missed the entire first half of the season. And I walked in, and he was getting dressed, and he was like literally the last guy in the locker room, getting ready to go on the bus and everything. And I was still standing there waiting, and then one of the PR guys said, "Are you waiting for Tomba?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, he's already talked, but let's see if he's got a second." And Tomba was like, "Hey, got time for Matt?" He's like, "Yeah." And talked to me, and I had a lot of respect for Tomba because he never told me no. Like I said, I know Tomba had a rough relationship with some others, and he didn't know me incredibly well, but I just always appreciated it. I appreciate that. Hey, when once again, didn't always have that relationship with everybody. So I never really got to know Justin Houston real well, but Justin didn't really let anybody get to know him really well when I was on the beat. But real journalism, even Watergate wasn't real, don't you know? Nikki, your mileage may vary. Although I told this story before too, and I don't want to be too depressing, but the one moment that drove me out of quote unquote real journalism was Oklahoma City bombing was my senior year. So that was in April as I was getting ready to graduate. And it was just the grim reality that my job at that point, if I was working in Oklahoma City, was going to be putting a camera and a microphone in the face of people who had just lost their families and children and spouses and brothers and sisters, and that was just like, okay, I'm not sure I'm cut out for this, and so went a different direction and wanted to go into sports originally, and hey, 30 years later it happens. Oh, oh, if I had no trouble talking to strangers, Nikki, it would be a totally different world. Brian, me and Nikki and Bobby are hanging with you every week, peppering you with questions. Are you sure that you won't come eat a little barbecue with us on August 1st in Blue Springs? Like I said, I do feel genuinely guilty about stepping into somebody else's event, and even though you all have invited me, and after I've told you about how much panic attack I have going into a room full of people that I've never met, and then strangers, and even though you are not strangers, I would still be a little bit terrified. So yes, I know you're pulling out the guilt trip card, and you know what, Brian, I am playing my reverse guilt trip card on you, playing some emotional Uno over here. I love it. Well, John, I will finish on the compliment. Truly appreciate that. Just incredibly kind words from everybody. I will say this, since you've offered the invitation out there, I am trying to find and we'll just send this out into the ether. So in case there's anybody, listening, I am looking for sponsors who would be interested in maybe hosting the Chiefs Digest Live, maybe once a month or so. So maybe that's something I can work out, and if it ever becomes a thing, and we can have some maybe regular events and everything that people can go to and move around and different parts of town and everything. I know that wouldn't always be great for the out of towners. And I'm considering also, since I don't travel as much anymore, maybe even for some road games, doing something on game day, I think would be fun as well. That I obviously do a lot of post game stuff, not just for the website, but for obviously the YouTube page. I work with Locked On Chiefs and Sports Radio 810, so I usually have like 3 or 4 shows that I'm doing after games on as long, and sometimes the KSHB 41 off on TV makes it a little bit more difficult, but maybe we can work out something like that. So truly appreciate everything. Appreciate the kind words tonight. Appreciate the great questions. Sorry, I babbled at times and everything, but hopefully everybody had some fun tonight. We've got to do another one of these next week. We'll do it every Tuesday leading up, because we don't have that much longer to go before training camp. And then we'll be talking about football full time and what happened in St. Joe and who is really going to be the 6th wide receiver and how many running backs are the Chiefs going to keep, and what's going to happen at fullback, if there's going to be a fullback, how many tight ends. I'm ready for it. So everybody, thank you so much for the kindness tonight, and appreciate the everything. Appreciate you all listening, and obviously hitting the like button, as Brian would point out. Subscribe, make sure you get the notifications about whenever we go live with a video, because we might go live more often than for training camp, and got some other things coming up to the pipeline. So hopefully there will be always some new stuff for you to see. Everybody, thank you very much. Have a great week, and we'll see you for 41 is the mic sometime on Sunday. Everybody,